Thank you very much. And we are coming now from a personally fascinating story to a personally but even more technically fascinating story. We will welcome on stage in a moment Andreas Perotti from eHang. And with Andreas, with a vast experience of over 10 years in the executive communication on sides of the political side from the European Parliament, the Ministry of Finance in Austria, but also with many companies in the telecommunication and aerospace industry. Andreas will kick off with a quick introduction video of everything that's happening at eHang at the moment, and after that, let's welcome him on stage.
Something totally different when you fly over the lake. It's really high up and it's great. I really loved it.
Ces drones taxis, c'est probablement l'avenir de la Chine.
Taking the airspace into use is fantastic potential, both for transporting goods and then also eventually people.
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here to discuss with you guys about a topic which might have a heavy impact on your industries in the future moving forward. At the end of the day, we are working on the same thing. We are working on an ever-increasing human fundamental need, which is the need for mobility. And if we think about the megacities of this world, the urban environments, considering that by 2050, 70% of the world population are living in urban regions. And we look at this picture showing the Central Park of New York, Manhattan, where you move with an average speed of 8 kilometers per hour in the individual mobility sector, then we know that there is a problem. And we think that looking up, where we have plenty of space, especially in the lower airspace, it would be a great opportunity to make more and better use of that for our individual mobility needs. On the one hand, in the transport of cargo and logistics, but on the other hand, also in the transport of passengers. The whole dream of the flying car, which this is in the end, is not something new. We have it in mankind since decades. The engineers among you are very well familiar with that magazine. And on the left side, we see a cover from the 1950s, showing already kind of flying car. Some of you maybe also know the old series of the Jetsons, which also gave some inspiration to the whole industry. And on the right side, you see a cover from the late 2000s with one of our products. And I'm often asked, well, we are talking about that since decades. Why do you think it should work now? It didn't work the last decades. And the truth is, today we have the technological layers to make that possible in aerospace lightweight manufacturing, in electrical engines, but especially in software when it comes to AI and other important codings. We are working in this whole industry since more than 10 years and have been the first company presenting the first fully electrical and autonomous passenger drone in 2016 at the Consumer Electronics Show. Then the whole industry skyrocketed. I'm pretty sure some of you already read about that stuff in the news. And in our case, we have several quite pretty well track records. We had our IPO in December 2019 on NASDAQ, and very soon we are going to be the first company worldwide which has a fully certified passenger drone working and in operation. Basically, we're not just working on passenger drones, and I think that's something what differentiates us a bit from the whole market, where you have, according to Roland Berger, roughly 300 companies right now working in that segment. Every aerospace company is in there, a lot of automotive companies, also some public transport companies. At the end of the day, that's the whole thing, the whole topic, the whole industry of so-called urban air mobility, which is emerging here, is somehow a hub and a combination of many different areas, which I described right now, but you can add digital industry, you can add social economy and sharing economy, and therefore I think that's quite interesting to have a look on it. We basically started as a software company. We developed a system for autonomous flying, and then we attached it to different use cases of drone hardware, which reaches from small-scale logistics, large-scale logistics, to passenger transport, and also sometimes for fun, but also for creating some revenues, since being in a market which is happening in the future, that's also necessary. We use a few hundred or sometimes also a few thousands of small drones to make beautiful digital fireworks up in the sky. Just 2 weeks ago, we made a new world record with 5,000 drones. And the nice thing is we can clearly demonstrate the capability of coordinating a lot of aerial elements in a very closed and narrow area, and that in a safe operational way. Let's have a bit on the vehicle, which is right now our most developed one, and in the certification process, as mentioned, almost finished. It's the so-called 216 model. Why 216? Because it has 2 seats, 2 passengers, no pilot, and 16 rotors. And all of these 16 rotors are connected with their own individual electrical engine, so it's 16 engines as well, and they are connected with their own battery, meaning you have 16 redundant cycles. If one of them is affected by any failure, for whatever reason, it doesn't affect the others. And 4 can stop working and it still stays safely up into the air. And compared to a helicopter, which has only 1, I think the theoretical chance is quite low. On the other hand, we reach a distance of today 35 kilometers with a top speed of 130 kilometers per hour, and we can transport a total payload of 230 kilograms. As mentioned, 2 passengers and a small trunk in the back. And you can see we have a platform model approach here, meaning we have a standardized lower part, which you can then add up with certain different cabins and for certain different use cases, which ranges from passenger transport to cargo transport, up to firefighting, for example, where we in our domestic markets in the Asia-Pacific region, where we're working very closely with some firefighting units, since buildings and cities grew up vertically. That's also something what needs to be solved. But we also have a fixed-wing platform in passenger transport, which basically has similar parameters, except the distance. We can reach up to 200 kilometers on one flight and on one charge with that product. It also can transport 2 people, similar payload, similar KPIs, just the necessity of less energy because of these fixed installed wings. The big difference is basically why do we have 2 models? A multi-copter system, of course, needs much energy, but especially on short city hops, it's much more stable up in the air. And with the 16 rotors and the related software, we can perfectly maintain not just a safe, but also comfortable flight up in the air. You don't feel any turbulences. I was flying myself many times in our domestic markets, and it feels more like taking an elevator than boarding an aircraft. Here, that's a bit different. It's like a small aircraft, but still fully sustainable, eco-friendly, electric, and as mentioned, 200 kilometers. The whole hardware is quite sophisticated, but the real rocket science is in the software. As mentioned, there is no pilot on board, meaning our AI, our software, fully steers the vehicle on its own. So in a theoretical approach, you move into the aircraft, take a seat, you see a dashboard like on Google Maps, you press a button, and the vehicle fully flies you around as you like. Is this a use case in the near future? No. not because of technological reasons, mostly because of regulatory reasons. So what we are working on is an operator-based system with a lot of third parties and partners from the mobility sector, but also with the regulator and municipalities, meaning you have an operator, could be a railway company, could be a public transport company, Ubers, taxis, airlines, whoever. And together with the regulator and the respective municipality, you work out a kind of transport network, meaning you predefine starting and landing spots and you connect them with predefined air routes. So a lot of things what somehow are prejudices and fears, which are natural in such a new emerging technology, can be tackled by a proper air route planning, thinking about noise pollution, thinking about safety and security. So at the end of the day, it's a mix of a bus line with predefined stations and the individual element of a cab or a taxi, because the passengers can decide from which station to which station they would like to fly. And since you have a three-dimensional space where you can move, that's working without any traffic jams. And the last layer of redundancy is always the human being. Meaning, if you operate such a network of air taxis, let's call it like that. In our industry, we call it eVTOLs, electrical vertical takeoff and landings. You always have, like at an airport, a command and control center, a tower, and there you have human beings inside. And these guys watch that everything is working properly. You don't need them for operation. But in case it's necessary that they interfere, not just for technical failure, but let's imagine somebody has a health issue or whatever, they can immediately take contact with the passengers and bring them down safely. The whole innovation, what we are working on, is not how we transport people or cargo from A to B. We have it since decades, and it's called helicopter. The innovation is that we use a lot of new technology to make the functional principle of a helicopter affordable for everybody. That's the goal. And this is why our whole development, our whole operations, our whole vehicle design, and our whole journey is as lean as possible. The vehicle has everything what it needs, but nothing more. It's quite small. When you fold up the rotor arms, you have basically the size of a smart car. So in city environments, you also don't need a lot of square meters. You don't need a lot of square meters to land, to park it, or for any storage or logistics. And therefore, we achieve a reasonable pricing, also considering we don't have a pilot, which are also quite expensive, in case you find some at all, looking at the airlines today, which allows us to achieve a pricing for the end consumer what is not significantly higher than taking a cab. We have been flying in many places in the world, more than 38,000 flights. I have to admit that in most of the cases it was without passengers, what you see here, and more have been added a couple of weeks ago in Israel, which is not updated here. Because of regulatory reasons, we have experimental permits where we're allowed to test, to fly, to tinker around, and to also learn together with the regulators and shape the proper regulation in this new market. Whereas in our domestic markets, in China and also in Japan, in the Asia-Pacific regions, we already are flying with passengers, and as mentioned, enter full commercial operations quite soon after certification. Here you can see some imagery which shows you that it's far beyond the prototype. So we have whole fleets operating already. In China, for example, it's more than 200. We are flying with passengers, we're flying in the cities, we're flying in rural areas, and therefore get a lot of experience also to improve on the long run the passenger experience. So that's serial model 1.0 right now, and of course we're already working on the next one. So if you're in the mood to fly, please just fly to China and you can already board an air taxi. That's a picture of this command and control center I was speaking about, where you have the human beings inside which monitor the whole operations. Here you can see a comparison of the leading companies. As I said before, according to a Roland Berger study, there are roughly 300 of these companies out there working on solutions. Some are more developed, some are less developed. Here you see the leading companies, and number 7 is us, which also illustrates a bit the whole size comparison, what affects everything, the space you need, the material you need, and aerospace composites and lightweight construction is not too cheap, to be honest. And we are also, together with some colleagues from the United States, Whisk, which has been bought by Boeing just recently. we're the only ones going all in on autonomy from the very beginning, and we believe that autonomy up in the air is much more easy to implement than it's on the ground, because you don't have basically any obstacles or unplanned incidents happening. The most difficult question for the regulator right now is how you can combine the legacy aviation with helicopters, private aircraft, together with this new airspace, with this new means of transport. So the air traffic management and the unmanned traffic management, how can you combine that? But a lot of great companies like Frequentis, Thales, Indra from all over the world are working on finding solutions here. Only in the last 3 years, there were 5 IPOs with a total market capitalization of $20 billion US. As I mentioned initially, almost every aerospace company, but also a lot of automotive companies are in that market, even digital companies like Amazon or the Google founders. The regulator take it serious. So basically, you have all the green ticks in the box, which illustrate that that's going to come. What we don't know today is when exactly is it going to come, where exactly is it going to come, and how big is it going to be. And here we see different paces all over the world where a lot of competition is already happening, even though the market is not existing or yet in between Asia, Europe, and the United States. Here you can see moving forward the implementation roadmap of when companies are going to be certified. And it all leads to 2030. And on the right side, I think that's quite interesting, because if you compare the whole topic to autonomous driving on the ground, it's a totally different thing, because autonomous driving on the ground is an implementation, an ecosystem which was growing over decades. And here we have to build a totally new ecosystem from scratch. I compared it to helicopters, much safer, much more eco-friendly because of being electric, and also much less noisy, which is significant. We have a noise pollution of 72 decibel as of today. And at the end, most important, do people want it? And I think in Europe, especially in some European markets, we have a very skeptical society in general when it comes to emerging and new technology. But even in Europe, the EASA study from 2021 shows that 50% of the people would like to try it, would like to have such a technology, even though we have to consider it's an uninformed society. So many people didn't get in contact with that. That's basically what I have to say about the whole topic of air taxis. And if you're interested on getting more information, or maybe even start working on a project together, I think for railways, there's a huge potential in connecting especially decentralized areas to mobility hubs like train stations. So please, let's get in touch. And besides that, I wish you a great conference, and thank you very much for your attention.